Hello everybody, thanks for tuning in for another episode from our 2025 eMTB shootout here at Zion Mountain Ranch in Utah. Today, we're going to be reviewing the S-Works Turbo Levo Gen 4. So before we jump into the bike, we'd like to take a quick second and thank the sponsors who've helped made this series possible. Fox Racing and Schwalbe Tires have been two critical partners in helping keeping us safe and protected, both on our body and making sure we've got great traction on the ground. Velocirax has also helped ensure we could take our e-bikes safely from trail to trail, and Zion Mountain Ranch for hosting us and keeping us well fed with some beautiful scenery and close access to great trails. So with that out of the way, let's get into the Specialized S-Works Levo Gen 4.
So currently Specialized is only offering the new Levo 4 in a carbon fiber frame. You can have the standard carbon fiber frame with an alloy link, or the S-Works comes with a carbon fiber shock extender. Regardless of that, you get the same features throughout: the adjustability through the flip chips, the Genie Float X shock on the rear, which is highly adjustable and pretty damn awesome. So there's two different drive units offered, with the standard bikes coming with a drive unit, the 3.1, with 666 watts of peak power and 101 newton meters of torque, whereas the S-Works that we've got here comes with a more powerful 720 watts of peak power and 111 newton meters of peak torque. Both of these are powered by an internal, easily removable 840 watt-hour battery. Specialized does also offer an aftermarket, smaller 600 watt-hour battery offering. And then of course you can add on the 280 watt-hour range extender. And Specialized also says that you can take the battery out of the mainframe entirely and just run the range extender for shuttle days, which is pretty awesome to see. So I have already touched on the high levels of adjustability. Cole, what are the standout kind of geometry features on this bike?
You know, there's nothing really that stands out, and that's for the better, I think. It's a very well-balanced package, but one thing that does stand out is that adjustability, being able to go from a long and low, short and high. You have the headset cup up front to really fine-tune the bike to your one style or the terrain you're riding. We've played back and forth, and we'll get a little bit more into that on the ride impressions, but I think the biggest thing about the Levo, as everyone's come to know, is that adjustability and being able to change the frame to suit your own riding style. This is the top of the line, no expenses spared, as you could imagine, from an S-Works, and it's currently $13,499. The ranges of price go from $79.99 on up. I think we all agreed. I don't know if we all agreed. I personally believe the Expert at $94.99 is a sweet spot in terms of value. Still getting a pretty solid brake and for suspension spec. You lose the carbon wheels, which is not a deal breaker to me. I think suspension brake is kind of the most important spot, but yeah, putting that build at $94.99 for the Expert, I think is pretty competitive to other bikes in the shootout and other bikes out on the market. You wouldn't be mad about riding that bike by any stretch of the imagination.
No. So Specialized delivered the bike. You might have caught a video we made with their product manager and one of the heads of suspension development for Specialized. And I will say that right off the bat, I personally didn't just instantly gel with the bike quite the same way as I did with the Gen 3. I think a lot of that had to do with the Genie shock, because the Geo was not drastically changed from that Gen 3. So it did take me a little bit more time. Specialized really kind of recommended and suggested I stay with that one Genie band in the shock. And I felt that while it did give like that kind of like super plush bump absorbing feel that they were kind of touting, I sort of missed a little bit more platform and push that the Gen 3 gave, which kind of allowed for a little more confidence. And that combined with the increased weight made the bike ride a little heavier and just kind of felt more like down and low in the travel. So I quickly went to a 2 Genie band setup. That way I could reduce air pressure, because I was kind of continuing to go up and up and up in air pressure, which then gave me some feedback and harshness I didn't want. So I ended up being happy with 2 Genie bands, and that's what we've stayed with for all of our testing. Would you guys feel like you're happy with this rear end as is with 2 Genie bands?
My personal opinion is that with the 2 Genie bands, it doesn't necessarily do all of the Genie things.
Okay.
I think when you're at, I've tested a stump jumper with 0 and 1, and I preferred like 0 or 1, just because when you have those less genie bands in there, it feels that kind of more magical, like soft off the top feeling.
Like a genie?
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm trying not to say that, but yeah, kind of magical, genie-esque, whatever you want to call it, where you get it super soft and supple off the top, like a coil shock, but then don't slam into the bottom out bumper. So I was very surprised, you being the soft off the top kind of man that you are, that you preferred the two bands, but I guess there's just no keeping you happy, right?
No. Take time, experiment with the genie shock. Let air out of your shock if you're going to work on it, but it's not very hard. As long as you do that step, it's very quick, it's very easy. It's not a change that you can't undo very easily.
This is a very unique drive unit. Nobody else in the world is using this. Cole, what do you reckon? S-Works power?
I mean, it was noticeably different on that peak power compared to the pre-updated Bosch systems, but the manageability of that power was pretty good until I got into some really steep areas and left it in the highest power setting. It was well above what I needed to kind of conquer some of those things, and it kind of ran away from me. But then using microtune and kind of finding that sweet spot, I'm now learning that all the power isn't necessarily the best in every situation.
For sure. And of course, you've got the Specialized app as well. You can go in and tune the characteristics, not just the amount of power, but how it's delivered to you, and really just, tailor the feeling of the drive unit to how you prefer.
Yeah, and just a little bit more on the microtune. Yeah, the other day we did a big epic, wanted to conserve battery life, and was able to kind of tune it down to feeling like my best, most fit day ever, still getting a workout, held about a 130 heart rate, but wasn't exhausted after a climb. And that for me, having that ability to do the little bits, like, okay, I just need a little bit of extra power for this climb, was really cool.
I really like the Microtune Plus. I didn't ever use Microtune on the old bike, but on the new bike with the Microtune Plus, which again, we go into in more detail in that video, which we'll link if you want to learn more about that. But I liked how that gave me more power when I needed it. Wasn't just like the Microtune amount of power for the real technical kind of ledgy climbs that I enjoy. Aside from that, my one, I guess, critique, you could say, on the auto mode was in the stock setting that Specialized provides the bike in. I found that when you would come in at a relatively high cadence and you're feeling a lot of assist and boost and power out of that drive unit, when you would brake and hit a switchback or a tight corner, it would be about 2 full pedal strokes before power kind of ramped up. So I found that, like, if we were doing like a race run, like a timed climb or something, I'd come out of that corner and I'd be like, did I accidentally bump it and turn the power to eco or something? And it would take 2 strokes to ramp up. So something that's tunable, but at least if you're feeling that in auto mode, you might want to go into the app and play around with your settings there.
For sure. But the power, no denying, it is pretty damn awesome. Definitely competitive with other stuff that's on the market.
It's a rocket.
Maybe not quite at that DJI level, but I think we've pretty much come to the conclusion that you just don't need all of that power, especially when the bike isn't necessarily, you'd probably want a 460mm rear end just to keep the front end down when you're using all that power. And
I started out with the bike in the nominal headset cup, short and high setting on that chainstay, and it was snappy, it was fun, I could flick it about, and on some of those tighter corners where we're coming in at pace, midway through the corner, the back end was breaking loose a little bit, and once we went to that longer chainstay setting, I was much more able to commit into that corner and really get the bike leaned over and have a lot more exit speed. Like you said, that did sacrifice some of that playfulness. I feel like maybe the little less poppy on some of those poles, but for what I was looking for, that was a adequate consolation prize of having a lot more traction for me in the corners.
I was blown away at how capable this bike is for a 150mm bike.
Yes.
We're working our way through this shootout series, right? There's 12 bikes and we've got 150 to 180mm bikes. And yesterday we went and rode I would say that was a pretty gnarly, chunky, long, how long, 10, 15 minute descent?
15 minutes.
And it was nonstop rock. And on our first lap dropping in, Rob was on the Crestline, which is a 180 bike, and I was behind him on this. And there wasn't anything that had me slowing down, thinking I was certainly not as comfortable, we could say, right? And that's just purely because of travel, I would say, and my own personal fitness. But like the fact that Robert was riding along at a fun, enjoyable, pretty quick pace, and I was going the same pace on a 150, 160 bike, I was like, man, this bike is very capable. This is really awesome. And maybe if I did it every day, I would want a 180 or a 170 bike to do it. But the fact that this thing is capable of doing that, but then when we went and rode the trails, it didn't feel like that 180 bike. It felt more like a trail bike. That's a huge testament to this bike for me. And it went from me kind of being on the fence after the first few rides back home on the home trails about like, I don't know. And like the more time I've spent on it, I'm like, dang, this thing is just, it really can reach into both ends and be a great bike for a lot of people.
Absolutely. I did the opposite swap. So I started on the crest line, got all my lines dialed, and then hopped on this to do the second lap, which was a little bit hotter, shall we say?
Yes.
And riding all the same lines as on the crest line, there was only a couple of times that I was like, oh, yeah, that is a 150 mil rear end, which is amazing because, yeah, it certainly wasn't holding me back on some pretty gnarly.
And on that second lap, you were gone. Yeah. So something was working there for you.
It's definitely a ripper, and yeah, certainly a bike that I think just does everything so well that I just don't see who's going to be unhappy with this thing. Yeah. But who do you think is the ideal consumer?
Honestly, so S-Works aside, right? The new Levo Gen 4 is for the rider who I think wants to have a very versatile bike. They want to have all of the features that mountain bikers want, right? You've got SWAT, you've got up above the battery, you've got internal top tube storage, which is crazy. It's attached via a little bag that has a magnetic attachment in there. It's pretty quick and easy to get to. So like Specialized really just, it's like they went to the boardroom with a checklist. They went check, 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 check. Like, what do people want? Let's do it. And yeah, that may have come at the price of the looks of the frame, right? That down tube's a little big and bulky. But overall, I think that riders will be able to enjoy this bike in a wide variety of terrain and a wide variety of skill sets. You don't have to be at this end or that end. You can pretty much live anywhere in the country, right? And you can enjoy this bike. And that's something that we can't say about every bike here. I want more travel out of an e-bike just because of how and where I ride. Most of the time when I'm on an e-bike, I want more travel. So if 150 is good for you, I would say this bike swings well above its class for a 150 bike.
Yeah, maybe even if 160 or 165 are good for you, right?
Yeah, but there's just no making up for travel. But this bike, I went from being on the fence, like I said, to like, it's really, really awesome. I like it a lot.
This is so dialed. Like you say, the checklist has been ticked off in every aspect. Maybe the paint color isn't for everyone. Maybe the down tube is a little bit on the chubby side, but like everything is incredible to work on. It runs super quietly. It's just
charge port cover is easy.
Yeah. Oh, and you got charging. You've got an eco trickle charge. You've got a fast charge and a regular charger.
Only on the S-Works.
Yes, on the S-Works. I think you can buy that charger separately, but that's a really neat feature because that extends battery life when you want to trickle. But if you're in a hurry, you can fast charge. It's a sick bike. It's a sick.
Like the checklist thing is the perfect way to put it.
There you go, folks. Stay tuned. We've only got a couple more episodes left before our grand finale in the 2025 eMTB shootout here at Zion Mountain Ranch. Thanks again to Fox Racing and Schwalbe Tires, as well as Velocirax for making this series possible. Don't forget, if you want to check out a lot more in-depth videos on the Levo, we have that. We'll link it below, as well as in our members platform. We've got like an hour-long interview with the product manager and suspension developer all about the details of this bike and lots more behind-the-scenes content, as well as tons of giveaways and abilities to test and review product for thelonewolf.com. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you out on the trails.